Most people don't even look twice at the cashier. Scan beep receipt and their day goes on. But when you've only got one arm, people don't just ignore you. Some of them go out of their way to be cruel. They laughed when she dropped the carton of eggs, called her half-price and discount employee, pointing at the sleeve pinned to her apron. She forced a shaky smile, whispering, "It's fine, I'm used to it." What she didn't know was that the man in the next aisle recognized her immediately, the eyes of his fallen brother, the girl he'd promised to protect. And when Jason Statham finally stepped around the corner, the bullies realized too late this wasn't just some cashier, and what they had done had consequences that they couldn't afford to pay. Before we continue, if stories where the underdog finally gets the justice they deserve mean something to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We drop new videos like this every week. Real emotion, real stakes, and moments that remind us there are still good people left in the world. All right, let's get back to it. Most people didn't even look at her. To the customers in aisle 7, she was that slow cashier. To the impatient shoppers, she was the girl with one arm. To the boys who came in every Friday to buy energy drinks and brag about their weekend plans, she was nothing more than entertainment, a joke they hadn't finished telling. But to Jason, she was a face he had never forgotten, even if she had no idea who he was. The grocery store hummed with the usual 5 p.m. chaos, kids crying, carts squeaking, exhausted parents rushing home, but Jason's world felt smaller the minute he stepped inside. Tight, focused, like he could sense something was off. He grabbed a basket, but his eyes kept drifting, searching the aisles. He didn't like this store. He didn't like crowds. And he definitely didn't like the 4 grown men snickering at the checkout lane. He knew trouble when he saw it. He felt it. And then he saw her. The cashier. Emily. Her dark hair was tied back in a tight ponytail, her apron slightly crooked, her face trying too hard to hold a smile she clearly didn't feel anymore. She scanned items quickly, quicker than anyone expected a young woman missing an arm to be able to. But each motion carried a weight behind it, as if she were counting every second until she could escape. And Jason recognized her. Not from the store, not from town, but from a night years ago, a night he had locked deep in his memory. A night filled with smoke, screams, and a terrified little girl who clung to her mother as firefighters tried to break down a burning front door. He hadn't worn a uniform then. He hadn't needed one. He was just a man who happened to be there, and one who refused to walk away. A man who carried Emily's mother out of a collapsing house. A man who held 4-year-old Emily as she cried for her mom. A man who disappeared before anyone could thank him, because some heroes don't want their names in the story. Jason had never forgotten her, but she could never have recognized him. Back then he had hair. He wasn't covered in scars. And she was just a child, shaking in his arms. Now she stood at that checkout lane, older, stronger, fighting a different kind of fire. And losing. Jason felt his jaw tighten. Because the boys, the ones in the leather jackets, the ones acting like the store was their playground, were circling her like hyenas. The tallest one nudged his friend and nodded toward the cashier. "Watch this." Emily didn't hear him. She was too busy trying to open a plastic produce bag with one hand and her elbow. She never complained. She never sighed. She just made it work. But the boys weren't here to admire her strength. They were here to break her. The first egg hit the floor before she even realized what they'd done. Crack. Yellow spilled across her shoes. Emily froze. Jason didn't. He moved closer, basket still in hand, body quiet, eyes locked on the scene unfolding like a storm cloud ready to burst. The boys laughed. "Oops," the shortest one said, smirking. "Guess she can't catch." Emily swallowed hard, whispering, "Please don't." But another egg flew. Crack. Then another. Crack. Each one louder than the last. Each one meant to remind her of what she already battled every single day, that the world saw her as half of a person. Her breath hitched just once, but Jason saw it. He saw everything. The humiliation. The panic, the desperation to keep her job, and the quiet, shaking fear that this moment would follow her home, sit with her on her couch, keep her awake at night. Jason's fingers curled round the handle of his basket. He could feel the anger rising in his chest, not hot, not blinding, but cold and sharp, the kind of anger that made him dangerous. The boys didn't notice him yet. They were too busy performing for the phones they had pulled out, filming her humiliation like it was some kind of game. Emily knelt slowly, trying to pick up what was left of the eggs with her one hand, the carton trembling in her grip. She wasn't crying. Not yet. But her lips trembled. Her shoulders shook. And when she reached for another egg, her attempt to hide the shiver in her hand nearly broke Jason's heart. Because he remembered her shaking like that before, tiny fingers gripping his shirt, her head buried in his chest, the sounds of sirens and crackling flames behind her. He had held her back then. He wanted to hold her now. But this time was different. This wasn't a burning building. This was a fire of shame. One that had been lit on purpose. And he knew exactly who the arsonists were. The boys leaned over her. "Hey," the tall one said with a chuckle, "maybe try using your other arm." His friends burst into laughter. Emily's head dropped lower. Jason set the basket down. Slowly, deliberately, and walked toward her lane. One of the boys finally noticed him, saw the man with the shaved head and the clenched jaw approaching. "Relax, old man," he sneered. "We're just having fun." Jason didn't answer. He stepped right past them, crouched beside Emily, and gently touched her wrist. "Let me help," he murmured. Her head snapped up, startled, and for a moment their eyes locked. She didn't recognize him, but she saw something else. Kindness. Humanity. Someone on her side. "I'm fine," she whispered, voice breaking. "I know," Jason said softly, "but you shouldn't have to be." That was when the tall boy shoved Jason's shoulder. It was light. Stupid. And it was the last mistake he would make that day. "Hey," the boy barked. "We're not done here. She still owes us entertainment." Jason stood. Slowly. Methodically. He turned toward the group, his face unreadable except for the flicker of warning behind his eyes. A warning they were too arrogant to understand. "Walk away," Jason said quietly. The boys laughed again. "Or what?" the leader mocked. "You gonna throw eggs at us too?" Jason didn't blink. He didn't move. He didn't raise his voice. But the air changed around him. "You don't want to know what I'll do," he said. Emily watched, frozen, fear and confusion battling inside her. One of the boys stepped forward, crowding into Jason's space. "You don't scare us, you're nobody." Jason's jaw clenched just slightly. "Nobody," he repeated softly. "Right." But in his chest he felt something strange. Because this wasn't just anger. This was protective instinct, the same instinct he had felt when he carried 4-year-old Emily out of a burning house. He had saved her once. He wasn't going to fail her now. Emily's voice finally cracked. "Please, I just need to finish my shift. Don't fight, I can't lose this job." Jason looked at her, really looked. The quiver in her chin. The redness in her eyes. The quiet, exhausted plea of someone who'd been strong too long. She wasn't asking him to walk away. She was asking life to stop hurting her. Jason lowered his gaze, took a breath, then met her eyes again. "I won't let anyone hurt you," he said. She didn't understand what those words truly meant. Not yet. But she would. Because as the boys puffed their chests and smirked, as customers pretended not to see, as Emily knelt on the floor holding broken eggs like broken pieces of her dignity, Jason Statham, unrecognized, unnoticed, unafraid, took a single step forward. And everything in the store began to shift. For a moment, the grocery store felt frozen. Customers stopped pretending not to watch. The manager peeked around a shelf, unsure whether to intervene. Emily knelt on the floor, clutching broken eggs and shaking, torn between fear and humiliation. And the 4 bullies squared up to Jason like they still thought they were the biggest thing in the room. They had no idea how small they really were. The tall boy, the ringleader, jabbed a finger into Jason's chest. "You don't tell us what to do," he snapped. "This is between us and the cashier." Jason didn't even glance at him. He simply said, "Emily, stand up." "I have to clean this," she whispered, eyes darting. "I'll get in trouble." "You're not cleaning anything," Jason replied gently. "Stand up." Something about his voice, steady, warm, unmistakably in her corner, made her rise even though her legs trembled. The leader scoffed. "Oh, look at that, Daddy's giving orders now." It was meant to be funny. Nobody laughed. Jason stepped in front of Emily, shielding her with his body as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Last warning," Jason murmured, eyes locked on the leader. "Walk away." One of the bullies spit on the floor. "Nah," he said. "I think you're the one who needs to back off." Jason's jaw tensed. Emily's breath caught, and the ringleader shoved him, hard this time. Jason didn't move an inch. He stood like a wall, like a man who had faced far worse than 4 overgrown boys with too much free time. "Big guy, huh?" the bully sneered. Jason finally spoke, but not to him. "Emily," he said softly, "close your eyes." "Why? Just trust me." Her lashes fluttered, confusion mixing with fear, but something in his voice, something warm, familiar, safe, made her obey. The ringleader smirked. "What, she squeamish?" Jason stared at him. "No, I just don't want her to see what happens next." The bully opened his mouth to laugh. But Jason moved. Not fast. Not flashy. Just precise. Controlled. He stepped forward, grabbed the bully's wrist midair as the kid tried to swing, and twisted it down like he was turning a doorknob. The bully hit the floor before he could blink, gasping in pain. His friends froze. Jason didn't. He grabbed the second kid by the hoodie, yanked him forward, and planted him against the checkout counter so hard the candy bars rattled. The third tried to run. Jason didn't chase him. He just said, "Move another step and you'll regret it." The boy froze instantly, as if the words alone pinned him to the floor. The fourth, the youngest, raised his hands. Okay, we didn't mean." Jason cut him off with a look. "Not anger. Disappointment." "The only reason you 4 are still standing," Jason said quietly, "is because she asked me not to make a scene." The boys trembled. Because that tone, calm, cold, painfully controlled, belonged to someone who knew exactly how to end a fight and chose not to. The ringleader whimpered on the floor. My wrist is." "It's fine," Jason said. "You tried to hit a girl, I stopped you. Consider that your lesson." The bully stared up terrified. "Who are you?" Before Jason could answer, Emily opened her eyes. And the moment she saw the boys frozen in place, saw Jason standing in front of them like a shield, her breath stilled. "Jason," she whispered, please don't get fired because of me." He turned, and in his eyes she saw something she hadn't expected. Not anger, not pity, but something deeper, something she couldn't name. "I'm not an employee," Jason said gently. "I can't be fired." Before she could ask what that meant, the manager rushed toward them. "What's going on here?" he shouted. The bullies instantly pointed at Jason. "He attacked us. He grabbed me. He hurt my wrist. We're calling the cops." Emily stepped forward, trembling, terrified, but brave. "And no," she stammered. "They attacked me. They threw eggs at me on purpose. Jason only helped." The manager looked torn. He hated the bullies, but he feared their wealthy parents even more. "I can't get involved in this," he muttered. "If their parents complain." "They won't," Jason interrupted. "And why not?" The leader spat from the floor. Jason reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a black leather wallet, opened it. Emily blinked. The manager blinked. The bullies went silent, because inside wasn't a driver's license, or money, or a credit card. It was a badge. Not local police. Not state. Federal. "Why, you're an agent," Emily whispered. Jason didn't answer. Instead, he crouched beside the ringleader and spoke low enough that only the boys could hear. "You ever bully her again? You ever harass anyone again? And I will personally make sure every door you try to walk through stays shut. Understand?" The boy nodded frantically. Jason stood and looked at the manager. "These kids are banned," he said, "indefinitely." The manager nodded instantly. "Oh, of course." "And Emily," Jason continued, "will not be punished. She is one of the hardest working people you have here." Emily looked stunned. But how do you know that?" Jason turned to her. Slowly, carefully, and for the first time, the truth began to show in his eyes. "Because I've been watching out for you," he said quietly. She froze. He continued, "I didn't plan to say this. I wasn't sure if I ever should, but today you deserve to know." Emily swallowed, confusion and fear mixing in her expression. "Know what?" Jason took a breath. And suddenly, the grocery store wasn't a grocery store anymore. The eggs on the floor weren't eggs. The crowd wasn't a crowd. He was back in the smoke-filled hallway. Back in the heat. Back in the moment everything changed. "Years ago," Jason said softly, "your home caught fire. You were 4. Your mother was trapped inside." Emily's breath stopped. I remember the fire, but barely. My mom said a firefighter saved her." "That wasn't a firefighter," Jason said. His voice cracked just once. "It was me." Emily stared. Her lips parted. Her eyes filled. "No," she whispered. "No, that can't. You're just a customer," Jason said with a gentle smile. "A stranger, someone with no reason to care." He shook his head. "Emily, I carried you out. You held on to me and cried into my shirt. I waited at the ambulance until they told me you would both live." Her hand shot to her mouth. Tears spilled instantly. The boys in the corner looked stunned. The manager looked like he might collapse. The customers stared with their own eyes shining. Emily stepped closer, slowly, shakily, as if approaching a ghost she never realized was real. Why would you help me again?" she whispered. Jason's voice softened. "Because I made a promise," he said. "A promise?" "To your mother," he replied. "When she was being taken into the ambulance, she grabbed my arm and begged me not to leave you alone in this world if anything ever happened to her." Emily covered her mouth harder. "My mom, she died when I was 8, she whispered. "Cancer." Jason nodded. "I know," he said. "I went to the funeral. You didn't see me, you were too young, but I stayed in the back. And ever since, I've kept an eye on you, quietly, from a distance." Emily broke. A sob ripped out of her chest, sudden, raw, unstoppable. She staggered forward. And before she could fall, Jason caught her. Just like he did the first time. She cried into his chest, older, taller, but still the same little soul who had been fighting for a place in the world since she was 4. I thought I was alone," she sobbed. "All these years I thought no one cared." Jason held her tighter. "You were never alone," he whispered, "not for a single second." The bullies stood frozen, shame crawling over their faces as the weight of who they hurt finally sank in. Jason looked at them just once and they flinched. "Leave," he said. They ran. Emily stayed pressed to him, her tears soaking his shirt. When she finally pulled back, she whispered, "What now?" Jason smiled softly. "Now," he said, "now you go home early with pay." Emily blinked. "What about tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," Jason said, brushing a tear from her cheek, "you meet me here at 8. "Why?" "Because," he answered, voice warm with a promise years overdue. "You've spent your whole life surviving alone. It's about time someone helped you live." Her lip trembled. She nodded. And for the first time in her adult life, Emily didn't feel small. She didn't feel broken. She didn't feel like a burden. She felt protected. Because the man she never knew she already owed her life to was finally stepping out of the shadows. And this time, he wasn't leaving.